Hi, Charlton. I wanted to leave you some feedback on your rough draft, your week 2 writing assignment. Oh wow, you are doing some fantastic work in this draft. I really think that you are getting to a lot of truths um, about many things about gender, particularly. I think you're getting to some truths um, about um, what about prejudice and what it's like to be a person of color in the United States. And I think that you're also getting to some truths about family and education. So really, what I see here is a lot of themes that have really gone in to shape um, how you believe you've been socialized, which is what you say early on in the draft. Um, and it's all good and it's all potentially angles that you could explore in this paper. I'm not sure if every single one of those you'll be able to go into um, deeply in the narrative. So it might be a good idea to think about maybe one story that you want to tell that would, help you kind of explain how you feel the way you do about education, gender, and race. If you want to talk about all those things, I think I don't. What I don't want to do is ask you to set, one of those things down. On the one hand, I think it would be a fascinating exploration to kind of think about how all those things have shaped your perspective, right? But you do indeed want to tell a story with a clear narrative arc. Um, and I think, for example, your decision to come to Missouri Southern over, other schools, this could be a whole story that could be told. And you say here that the way that the coaches acted and presented themselves made you feel like this was the best decision to make. So you could tell that story, and while you tell that story, you could begin talking about what you believe about the purpose of education to be, what you believe about gender, right? Some of the things that you talked about, and quite possibly some of the things that you talked about in terms of experiencing prejudice. Um, However, the all this good reflection here about the really rigid rules we have in our culture in terms of masculinity, this could be a fantastic narrative right here on its own. And I think that it might be, I think that you could end up talking about sports, right, in this discussion as well, right? Because, um, you talk about men being expected to be tough and gritty, and that's something that we see very concretely when, in terms of athletes, right? So we expect male athletes and really women athletes to a certain extent to be very tough and gritty. Like we have this tendency to stereotype those people, and one of the interesting things is like you're showing that there's not only is there a lot of layers to athletes, but there's a lot of layers to um, being male as well, right? And perhaps these expectations, these gendered expectations that we have, don't allow people the full range of humanity, which I would argue feels and is problematic, right? Because you're talking about that here, right? You're talking about that here, right? And if we were more accepting of men being able to openly express that full range, I think that we would have a healthier society. We'd have healthier people. And I really love this kind of anecdote here where you're talking about that, it's not only men that police each other, right? Like, we learn these things on the playground. Only sissies cry, right? Don't fall down and cry and scrape your knee because you're a sissy. That's essentially teaching you, if a young man hears that, if a child hears that, he's being taught how to, perform as male, but you're recognizing the problems related to that, which is a fantastic discussion. But one of the things that you're also pointing out, that it's not just men policing men, but women also absorb these messages too and take part in that policing, right? So I think is stretching out this discussion would be another wonderful idea to do for this narrative. And then maybe you can talk about how these gendered expectations are entwined with sports, and maybe how these gendered expectations are even tied into race as well. This narrative that you include here, right, with these terrible moments of prejudice and that you're experiencing, this could be another thing that you could pull out into a fully realized narrative as well. This feels like a really traumatic moment, right? So I don't know that you would want to focus your whole narrative on that. You certainly could, but you could also, I'm not suggesting that you have to write about this, but this could be something that you could stretch out into a fully realized narrative if you wanted to. So basically, this is what I'm getting at. I'm seeing a lot of kind of mini stories in the submission. And remember, I said this week that that's probably what is going on in a lot of your drafts. So what I want you to think about is focusing on one story that you want to tell, right? And then letting all of these other themes kind of get woven into that, right? I think that that's going to make for a really strong narrative. One of the things that I do want you to pay attention to in terms of your sentences, and this is just something that you want to clean up in your final drafts. You want to pay attention to repetition, unnecessary repetition, right? So you're trying to say that you've been socialized by society, but you've got a lot of unnecessary repetition here. So you just want to think about how in the final draft you can rephrase this so you're not using all of that unnecessary wording that kind of makes your sentences sluggish. Like that's essentially what it does, right? Because instead of moving on to a new idea, the reader's kind of stuck in this cycle, reading the same thing over and over again. But really great work. I love the things that you're writing about. I really think that you're getting at some real truth, and I cannot express how much I appreciate your honesty. You are doing what I believe the real purpose of writing to be. And it's so some people think it's just about communicating effectively, and it is. But I also think that there's another layer here, that writing really helps us understand who we are, right? And I think that's what you're doing here. All right, I look forward to seeing where you take this.